Hey. How are you doing today? Today's going to be just a touch different. Um, doo-doo-doo. I am going to be reading uh, the book Penny Dreadful by the amazingly talented Mary Hallberg. Now, I reached out to her on YouTube as well as on email, trying to get permission. So, ma'am, if you see this and you do not approve of me reading your book, my apologies. Let me know. I'll take it down. No need to copy strike me, right? Now, in the description, there is a link to her YouTube channel, which is fantastic. She does true crime. The link to her website, as well as the Amazon link to buy her books. And if you have a Kindle, at least one or two of her books are free. So there's that. All right. You ready, Panda? He's excited. He's been cautiously waiting for me to read because he gets scared easy. All right. 16-year-old Penny Boudreau didn't believe in ghosts until they started talking to her. Could be fun. All right. Chapter 1. As Penny entered the funeral home, the cold air stung her skin. Her flats sunk into the carpet as she walked, and she made a mental note to change back into track shoes. If today was business as usual, she'd likely end up knee-deep in Comet. Her Uncle Vic was in his office, a box of blue gloves in hand. "Hey there, Penny." He slid a glove over his hand and snapped the end. "Ready for your exam?" Penny cringed as she set her bags down. "God, does that ever actually work?" Uncle Vic chuckled. "Your mother never liked my sense of humor either." He tossed the glove box to her. "Here, take these. I've got a surprise for you." "A surprise?" "Yay! Am I going to be cleaning up vomit today?" She reached in the opening flap and started to pull a glove out. I hope not. If you vomit at the sight of a corpse, you're probably not cut out for this industry." Her hand stopped, the glove only halfway on. I'm going to see a corpse. Well, I just got one in that may take a little longer than usual, and I need an assistant. What do you say? The glove she held moved slightly back and forth, and she realized her hands are shaking. Why will it take longer than usual? He frowned. This one's a homicide. The police think it was a botched robbery. You can say no if this is too much for you. There are plenty of other things around here that need your attention. No, I mean, you're right. If I can't handle a corpse, I shouldn't be here. A layer of sweat formed at her temple as she said it. The only corpses she'd seen were her mother's and sister's. 5 years ago. Their deaths were accidental, and they were already embalmed by the time Penny laid eyes on them. She'd never seen a corpse so soon after death, let alone one that bore the marks of violence. But it would be much better than scrubbing toilets, right? Uncle Vic escorted her to the back, past the lobby and viewing rooms, and into the employees-only area. The carpet from the front continued down a hallway with a set of double doors at the end that looked like the ones in her school cafeteria. He led her down the hallway and pushed open the doors as they entered. The flaps on the doors squeaked as they closed. The room was bare white, with gray stone floors. Shelves and racks lined the walls, and a desk stuffed in the corner was topped with writing paraphernalia. Other than the gurneys in the center of the room, 2 empty and 1 accompanied. It looked like someone's basement, or at least what Penny envisioned a basement would look like. This close to New Orleans, nobody had basements. The corpse on the gurney was a beautiful, dark-skinned woman. She couldn't have been much older than Penny. Late teens, perhaps, early 20s at the oldest. Her body lay on the slab, naked except for two cloths covering her middle. A few feet away sat a machine filled with pink embalming fluid. Uncle Vic slid to the sink to wash his hands, and Penny followed suit. Her shaking hands calmed as she slid them over and around each other in the cool water. Uncle Vic took two blue outfits from a nearby rack and tossed one to Penny. "Put this on," he said, and nodded toward head covers on the table by the racks. "One of those, too." He slid a cover over his own head. They were moving back towards the gurney when there was a knock on the door, and the secretary walked in. "Dr. Miller, you have a fax." "Thank you, Greta. Just leave it on my desk." She nodded and eyed the corpse. "I see you got a new girlfriend. Don't you think it's a little too early to be introducing her to Penny?" He smirked. "You worry about your own love life, Greta. I'll worry about mine." Hearing the secretary joke about the dead girl on the table allowed Penny to exhale the breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Her beating heart slowed, and the sweat on her forehead began to evaporate. By the time they approached the corpse, her heart rate was back to normal. Maybe this was why morticians adopted such a casual attitude around corpses. But up close, Penny could see why this death was ruled a homicide. A large purple bruise covered the corpse's right temple, and what appeared to be two knife wounds marred her torso. On the sliver of skin not covered by the cloths, there was another deep cut down the center of the body that branched out into a fork as it moved up her chest. The telltale Y incision of an autopsy. Penny wanted to reach out and touch the corpse, but she stopped herself. Touching a body before the embalming process even began had to be breaking some sort of rule, written or otherwise. By the gurney sat a table with a bowl and assorted tools. Uncle Vic picked up a can, shook it, and pushed the nozzle. White foam poured out. He rubbed the foam between his hands and over the corpse's legs. "You have to be really careful here. If you cut a corpse, they don't bleed, so they don't heal. When you're left with an ugly mark, it's not good for the viewing. Of course, people won't see her legs, so it doesn't matter much, but it's the psychology of it. You don't want to scar what used to be someone's loved one." He grabbed a razor from the bowl and shook it dry. "So, how's school going?" Okay, I guess. Hard." She watched him run the razor over the corpse's leg. The white foam disappeared gradually, replaced with smooth skin. "Hard. Is track getting in the way of your studies?" "You sound like my dad," Penny said, laughing. It felt weird to laugh around a corpse. "Well, I've spent too much time with him over the years." His smile faded. "Penny, you know I can cut your hours here if you need it. Schoolwork should always come first." "No way. I love it here. Besides, if I'm going to be a mortician, shouldn't I spend more time around here, not less?" The first leg was done now. Uncle Vic took a washcloth and cleared off the last of the foam. You can't become a mortician if you have low grades in math and science either. After finishing up the second leg, Uncle Vic took a needle and threaded it through the corpse's nostril. Penny had seen this in her mother's old medical textbooks, but never in the flesh. She watched as her uncle snaked the needle down through the woman's lips, gently closing them together. She tried not to cringe as the needle pierced the woman's skin. "Do you know what's next?" Uncle Vic asked. She nodded, her eyes still glued to the corpse. "Formaldehyde?" "Excellent." He went to prep the machine, and Penny stepped in closer to examine the body. She tripped over her own feet and held out a gloved hand to steady herself. A sliver of skin on the ungloved hand brushed against the corpse. And that's when it happened. "Penny," a voice whispered behind her. It was subtle, but distinct, and the room was otherwise silent. Did did you say something, Uncle Vic? What? He turned the machine on, and it whirled noisily. Penny, the voice whispered again. He did it, Penny. Uncle Vic's mouth remained closed. Pink fluid spurted through the tube like Pepto-Bismol. You didn't say anything just now. Just now, I heard a whisper. To her surprise, he smiled. Ah, experiencing some paranormal activity? What? It's not uncommon in this business. Greta says she heard whispers at night sometimes, usually when she's close to this room. She chuckled nervously. Come on, Uncle Vic. You know I don't believe in that stuff. Suddenly, the room felt colder. She heard the old saying that when a room grew colder, it meant there was a spirit present. But that was ridiculous. This room had to be cold for preservation. The air conditioner must have kicked on, or maybe Uncle Vic had preset it earlier. Uncle Vic tugged at his gloves. Behind them, the machine pumped formaldehyde into the corpse. You know, Penny, I've always thought you were a special kid. She blinked. Really? Thanks. I think. Most people don't like to think about death. It scares them, especially people your age. You're the only teenager I know who doesn't think you're invincible. I've never thought that. But I'm not scared of death either. Not at all? Not really. I know what I believe. And you're sure about that? Yeah, definitely. Even as she said it, her hands shook. She wondered what had happened to the girl on the slab after the robbery went awry. Was her soul at peace or in eternal torment? After what she had been through, Penny hoped it was the former. Uncle Vic picked up 2 oval-shaped caps from the table and placed them under the corpse's eyes. You know, Penny, I used to be afraid of death. After all, it's completely unknown. God only knows what happens when you die. Literally. But then, we lost your mom. Every time I thought about her, I kept wondering if she was okay. Sure, we believe in heaven and hell and all, but sometimes you wonder, you know? How do we really know for sure? So, how did you get over it? Your fear of death, I mean. Well, think about it. There are all these stories about ghosts and spirits. Maybe there is something out there. But that's all they are. Spirits. People don't physically come back anymore, like Lazarus. So even if they don't go to heaven or hell, wherever they are, they're not coming back here. So there's no use worrying about them. He readjusted the cloths over the woman's body. Looks like she's almost ready. The corpse's dark skin was a shade lighter now. Uncle Vic turned off the machine and the room was quiet. Penny didn't hear the whisper again. Monday afternoon, Penny walked half a mile from the school to her father's building, where she joined Jessie in her back office. An old computer sat on the desk, tempting her, but she pulled out her homework. She was on her 10th read-through of biology notes when Jessie shut his notebook. I can't concentrate. It's too hot in here. Penny opened up the internet browser and waited for it to load. It's always hot back here. Dad's too cheap to put in an air conditioner. Surviving the September heat in Louisiana was almost impossible without air conditioning. They had a high-powered fan, but Penny was still sweating through her school clothes. Anytime she mentioned the lack of air in the back of the office to her father, he reminded her that his grandfather grew up without air conditioner and worked outside in July in long sleeves. Surely they would be fine without a fan. Yeah, I kind of noticed he was cheap when I saw my first paycheck, Jessie said. Penny snickered. Jessie had been an intern in her father's office for 4 months now, since right after graduating high school. He had gone to school with Penny, but was 2 grades ahead of her, so they didn't have many classes together. An error message appeared on the monitor. Damn it, Penny muttered. Stupid internet cut out again. I'll fix it. Are you sure? I'm closer. Nah, it's fine. I need to get up anyways. I can't focus. His chair was next to her, so he used her armrest to pull himself up. She watched as he crossed the desk and bent down to work on the wires. His shirt came up slightly in the back, showing his pale skin. A knock on the door distracted her. Come in, Jessie muttered without looking up, and a boy walked through the doorway. He looked about Penny's age and had dark hair and tanned, muscular arms. He was carrying a coffee cup, a logo stamped on the side that Penny recognized from a local shop. Hey, Jessie. Dr. Boudreau said that you were back here. I got here early, so I thought I'd drop by and say hey. Jessie stood up and pointed to the boy. Penny, have you met my friend Stephen? Stephen, this is Penny, Dr. Boudreau's daughter. Penny stood, knocking her knee against the desk. Ow, she muttered. Her hair and shirt still clung to her sweaty skin, and she itched in places she dare not scratch in public. You okay? I do that all the time. I'm fine, she responded. Stephen approached the desk and held out his hand for her to shake. Not many boys her age did this anymore. And she took it gratefully. She hoped Stephen didn't notice her sweating palms. And that's when she saw it. A man lying on a slab, similar to the ones she'd seen half an hour before. The man couldn't have been more than 20 or so, and his skin was ghostly pale, and he was on the slab for the same reason as everyone else. The vision ended and Penny's head hurt. The man vaguely resembled Stephen, though much older, but otherwise unfamiliar. Why had some stranger flashed into her mind? Was her subconscious attempting to tell her something? Or was she thinking about the funeral home and death because they occupied most of her thoughts anyway? She spent the whole weekend trying to forget about the voice she heard at the funeral home. But death, it seemed, had followed her everywhere. She realized she was still holding Stephen's hand, and it was getting sweaty. She pulled away. So you're one of my dad's clients, she blurted out. Stephen opened his mouth but hesitated. Crap, Penny thought. Most of her father's clients were uncomfortable at the mere mention of therapy, even in the office. She should have known better. But seeing a vision of a man on a slab made it difficult to focus. Yeah, that's how I met Jessie. I moved here 2 years ago, and my aunt homeschools me. I don't know that many people around here. So he takes any friends he can get. Jessie chuckled. Even losers like me. Penny laughed, maybe a little too loud. She wondered why Stephen lived with his aunt, and suspected his absentee parents contributed to his need for therapy. But she didn't have to be a psychiatrist's kid to know not to pry. So do you go to East Jefferson? Yeah, I'm a junior. Ah. Penny runs track, Jessie chimed in. She's really fast. Oh. An athlete, Stephen said. And Penny smiled. She had no idea why she was smiling. Stephen continued. Why running? It's something I started a few years ago. I tried it one day and it was kind of fun, so I kept going. And it makes me feel good about myself. Wow, that sounded totally lame. It did sound lame, she knew. But she wouldn't reveal the truth to someone she just met. It's not lame. You should do what makes you happy. That sounded lame. No, it didn't sound lame at all. Stephen nodded. Well, my session's about to start, so I should get going. Nice meeting you, Penny. Maybe I'll see you around. Yeah, I'm stuck here every Monday. What a coincidence. That's when my sessions are. See you later. His gaze lingered on her for a moment before he nodded a goodbye to Jessie and walked out. As soon as he was out of earshot, Jessie burst out laughing. What the hell was that? What are you talking about? He knocked his voice up several octaves and waved his arms like a ballerina. Oh, Stephen, you should come by on Mondays. Where do you go to school? You're so dreamy. Penny scoffed. I don't sound like that. Not usually, but come on. You are so into him. He frowned and looked away. What are you, psychoanalyzing me? I don't even know him. She laughed, but her cheeks were growing hot. Now, get out. I have to study. But Penny gave up on studying once she arrived home and smelled her father's cooking. As she waited for dinner, she checked her email. Emma had sent her a link to a website of some new boutique opening up that weekend. She deleted the email without visiting the website. The next email was from an address she didn't recognize. She almost deleted it, but noticed the preview listed a URL with the phrase memorial service. She clicked the link, which led to an article on a local news site. The headline read, Annalise Silver to be laid to rest. Annalise Silver, the 22-year-old who was killed in her home in New Orleans Friday evening, will be laid to rest this Thursday. Visitation will be held at Miller Funeral Home from 5 to 9, with a service to follow Friday at 2 p.m. An investigation into Silver's death is still pending, but authorities suspect it was the result of a botched robbery. A photograph of Annalise accompanied the article. Penny still had no idea who sent the email, but it was obvious why it had been sent. The woman in the picture was the one she had helped Vic embalm. She exited the browser, her fingers shaking. Seeing the photo reminded her of being back at the funeral home, hearing someone whisper her name as she stood over Annalise's corpse. When Uncle Vic suggested the whispers were supernatural, she brushed it off, logically. Surely the secretary had been walking by, perhaps talking on the phone, and Penny had mistaken the overheard conversation for an otherworldly occurrence. And the incident in her father's office could be, it can be explained away too. She just helped with an embalming, and death was fresh in her mind. As was the paranormal. Since Uncle Vic had mentioned it, her father always said his clients who believed in the supernatural experienced it in situations where it was anticipated. They went to a purportedly haunted place, or to a psychic who told them the spirit of their dead relative was in the room. Then, of course, they swore they heard voices or saw spirits, because they were looking for them. But Penny had never looked for anything supernatural. Liking it so far? Me too. I hope this tastes good, Penny's father said as they sat down 10 minutes later. The sleeves on his collared shirt were buttoned up to his elbows, and he had abandoned his tie long ago. He had a dab of sauce on his khaki pants, and Penny laughed. You're going to have to wash those. I guess I am, but come on, let's eat first. The spaghetti was good, but Penny knew it would be. He'd used her mother's old recipe, which included chili powder and plenty of basil leaves. It would never be the same, but her father managed it well. Chili powder and spaghetti. Must be Cajun. So how was your day? It was fine. I just did biology and chem stuff. Ah, anything interesting happen at school? Any of your friends get expelled or pregnant or something? Yeah, they're passing out free condoms in health class now. Well, that's just not right. No daughter of mine is going to wear condoms. I'll have to take that up with the school board. Well, technically, I wouldn't be wearing them. The guy would. He laughed. Oh, so nothing really out of the ordinary today. I met one of your clients. Oh, really? Yeah, this guy named Stephen. Stephen Campbell? He stirred his sauce with his fork. I guess he's about my age, has dark hair and a tan. Well, I haven't noticed his tan or his hair, but I only have one client named Stephen, and he is your age. Oh, then that's him. He seems nice. He's very nice. Drinks a lot of coffee, though, and he never has to use the bathroom. That's what you noticed about him? Well, like I said, I didn't exactly notice his tan. So, why did you act weird when I mentioned Steven? What do you mean? That's exactly what I mean. The look you're giving me right now, like you don't really mean what you're saying. Penny, I'm tired. I've had a long day. I assure you, Steven is very nice, but just be careful around him. So, there's something wrong with him? It's not my job to judge him. Just be careful. He gives me an uneasy feeling. Penny knew it was useless arguing with him. Thanks to doctor client confidentiality, he couldn't tell her much more. And rules or no rules, he regarded the gut feelings as borderline gospel truth. With little real evidence, his mind was already made up about Stephen. I enjoyed my dinner. I'll get the dishes if you do the laundry. Laundry, my favorite. Make sure you rinse off the plates before you fill up the sink. I know, it makes it easier to wash them. You've told me this 1,000,000 times. He held up his hands. Hey, if you want to stick your hand in the water and feel spaghetti, be my guest. But as she washed the dishes, her mind wandered back to Stephen. Her father had never told her to be careful around a client. On the rare occasion when she asked about one, he refused to say anything. She had given up after a few tries, realizing he was bound both by rules and ethics. But something had compelled her to ask about Stephen, and she had gotten much more than she bargained for, even if that wasn't much at all. Damn, dropped my nuts. So, that was chapter 1 of Penny Dreadful by the wonderfully talented Mary Hallberg. Check it out. Go grab it on Amazon or wherever you buy your books these days. And I do hope that you enjoyed my reading. And Mary, if you catch this, if you don't want me reading your book on streams, just let me know. Don't strike me down. Anyways, if you are watching this on Facebook or on Periscope, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Look for me on Library. And I do hope you have a wonderful day.